Good afternoon, good morning, good evening from wherever you're watching this from. Welcome to yet another one of Chiromo Hospital Group's Wednesday live conversations. Today we are live on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and on YouTube, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. And we are glad to be having this conversation today. I am very honored to be in the midst of a beautiful panel that will be taking us through the topic of the week, and that is positive psychology and well-being. I'll be the moderator for today's conversation. My name is Pendo Ochola, a hospital psychologist from Chiromo Hospital Group. And I'm glad, really glad that you're talking about positive psychology today. So without further ado, allow me to introduce the panel that is with me in this session. Let me start with the order of my grid from where I am. Let me start with Deborah. Please say hi to the audience and tell us something brief about you. Over to you, Deborah.
So, hi everyone. My name is Deborah Monari. I'm a nurse and host for my upcoming talk show, The Deborah Show, where we cover medical-related issues, including hospital negligence. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah. Glad to have you as part of this panel. We'll go over to Martin. Martin, let me give you a chance to say hi to the audience and tell us briefly about what you do.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Martin Wahogo, and I work as a medical writer and editor, where my role is communicating research. I'm happy to be in this session and talk about an important topic on mental health and positive psychology.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Martin. I'm glad to have you in this panel. Let me hand it over to Magdalene. Over to you, Magdalene.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so my name is Magdalene Jambi Gasharu. I am a clinical psychologist with over 3 years of experience, and I am currently based in Chiromo Hospital Group, helping patients through individual therapy as well as group therapy and art therapy to just get to a point of wellness or to be able to manage the different mental illnesses that they're presenting with, as well as the different issues that are going on in their lives. And I'm really happy to be part of this panel discussion.
Thank you, Magdalene, and we're also glad to have you as part of this panel. So the topic of the day is positive psychology and well-being. And a fair place to start is giving a brief of what this is. For those who are not aware, we have a tweet chat that happens earlier in the week on Monday that touches on the same topic. Just in case there's someone who's watching this who did not perhaps participate in the tweet chat or is not aware about these two terms, maybe we can start with definition. Who would like to give their take on the understanding of what positive psychology is, for starters? Anyone? Your understanding of positive psychology?
Okay, maybe I could go.
Yes.
So my own understanding of positive psychology is the aspect of looking within yourself in more of a positive light and trying to enhance some of the strengths that you already have, or trying to harness some of the strengths that you already possess, as well as feeling, content and happy and resilient in life. Or it even looks like being able to build up on your self-esteem or your self-worth, self-love, and self-compassion. So that is what mostly is positive psychology for me, like looking through on the other strengths that you possess as a person and being able to tap into seeing things on a positive type of light in regards to your own experiences and in regards to just whichever challenges that might be there. Yeah.
Wow, thank you so much, Magdalene, on that. There's also the other aspect on well-being. Is there anyone who would like to go on the understanding of well-being?
I'll go.
Thank you.
So, my understanding of well-being is a person's physical, mental, and emotional health and happiness, and it's related to the sense of fulfillment and just overall life accomplishment.
Thank you for that, Deborah and Magdalene. These two, how do they come together? How does positive psychology contribute towards mental well-being?
Okay, I think I can go there. And on my case, I feel like positive psychology is the foundation or the basis of well-being. It provides the basic principles of achieving well-being. Because we say that positive psychology is more focusing on the positives of life. And now well-being is broad, and it appreciates the fact that there may be some negative experiences, some negative happenings in one's life, but we now focus on the positives of the whole situation. That even in the presence of the personal problems, we look at happiness, growth, optimism, and we try to live an authentic life and that has authentic relationships with other people and being at peace with ourselves. So in it, I feel like well-being and positive psychology are joined at the hip.
Mhm.
Yes.
Wow. Thank you so much, Martin. And before I even move on from that, is there anyone who'd like to add on to that in your understanding how positive psychology and well-being mesh? How do these two contribute to each other, if they do at all?
I could add something. Uh, on top of what he said, I think positive psychology is a direct contributor to well-being. So well-being cannot exist by itself without this other part of positive psychology, because we see that for you to be fulfilled in life and just have a sense of accomplishment and be happy and content, then your mindset also needs to be uh, geared towards that direction. So in positive psychology, that's where we find focus on the good things in life, your strengths, your abilities, and just a more positive perspective in life. So I think once you have this, even if you go through life adversities, you have resilience, you can bounce back and be able to, reframe all these negative thoughts and find something good in everything. So this is a major contributor to well-being.
Mhm, mhm. Wow, thank you so much, Deborah, for that. Let me also mention that we are having this live today on Facebook and Twitter and YouTube. Once in a while, we have a similar session on our Twitter page as part of a series of a conversation that we call Vitu kwa ground. That is Swahili for things as they are on the ground. And why we have this, why we bring this in, is to contextualize some of the topics that we're discussing. These are concepts, these are theories, but how is it on the ground? And maybe I'd like to throw you under the bus just a little bit as the panelists. And, I would like to hear part of your experiences. Have you had actual experiences where positive psychology has contributed to well-being in your day-to-day lives? Anyone who would like to go?
I'll go.
And then Magdalene, I've seen you had unmuted your mic. Okay, over to you, Deborah.
Okay. So personal experience would be, yeah, I've had such an experience before. There's a time in life and you having like sort of an existence, existential crisis, and when things are not really going your way. So I've been through that before, and that was last year, and I just found myself journaling. I said 2023 is not my year. I wish this year would end. And then, like a few weeks later, I just decided to focus on, a few things that had happened that year that were actually good, even if there were a few things. And I realized that life isn't all that bad. And, the good and the bad exist together. It comes and goes. So, yeah, it helps me to have some perspective even now. So, yeah, I remember to recall the good times so that it helps me go through the bad times. Yeah.
Thank you for that, and I also believe that what you've shared really meshes really well with the next question that you're supposed to cover. But let me hand it over to Magdalene first. Have you had a personal experience where positive psychology has actually contributed to your well-being?
Yeah, I could say in regards to my career life, at the beginning of my career as a psychologist, most of the time I really struggled with the imposter syndrome, not really knowing what I need to do or how I should do it, or feeling like I'm not, good enough to be in such a space, or as a therapist, I don't have the enough techniques and enough tools. So it really made me feel really bad about myself. So what I ended up doing was practicing journaling, just as Deborah had also mentioned earlier. So for me, journaling mostly looked like on a daily basis being able to just write down any simple compliments that I would get from any patient of mine who'd say, hey, Bede, I've really enjoyed the session, or I've learned a few things from this session, or I've gained self-awareness at this point, as well as even hearing some feedback from some of the psychiatrists, the doctors that I work with, who would, constantly refer patients to me. So it would really help me feel like I'm doing a great job. So what I'd do is with my journal on a daily basis, just write it down. Maybe, for example, today this doctor referred a patient to me, I would immediately just write it down in my journal book. And that would help me feel much better, and it helped me to validate myself more that the work that I am doing is a good thing, or it's something that is also showing. So for me, I've had that personal experience where positive psychology through journaling has helped me to get to a point of well-being for myself. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for that as well, Magdalene, for sharing personal experiences. A lot of times, people would get to that point of assuming that, someone who's getting to a platform like this, someone who is sharing, coming even from a professional point, coming from a panelist point, you've had most of the things in your life handled, that stress is not coming your way from one source or another. But little do we give enough credit to the fact that we are simply human beings, and because of that, we are not immune to stresses, you're not immune to challenges. And this is bringing us to the aspect of coping, because there will be no point in time when we will not be subjected to a form of stressor. There'll be no point in time when we are not being strained in one or another, and it's important that we intentionally look into coping. And you've mentioned some of the tools, and I've had journaling. Perhaps I'd like to hear whether there are any other tools within positive psychology that can be used in terms of coping, can be used in terms of building resilience. Let me hear from the panel. Martin, would you like to go first?
Yes, it's okay. Yeah, the question is on building resilience based on positive psychology. And,
Yes.
we do not exist in a vacuum. And in our lives, we are facing challenges at a personal life, family, work, and we have to build resilience to be able to cope with what life gives. And in it, we have to be able to acquire and learn skills that can absolutely help us deal with these issues and push. And for resilience, I believe that one should be able to create and assemble an arsenal of psychological capital. And this is what then can be able to help you be able to deal with any adverse experiences. And in that, the one I usually focus mostly on is on building a positive self-image. And to be able to build a positive self-image is an aspect that gives one that personal confidence, makes you avoid self-hate or self-pity. And in a way, you stop comparing yourselves with others, and you zoom out rather than being so much self-critical, you look at life from a broader perspective, so that you understand that the issues that are affecting you are not actually existing in isolation, or you're not actually the only one who is facing some of these issues. And you can actually get a bit of help, a bit of assistance from family, from friends. So in a way, I think that building that self-image is one of the key skills that can be key in becoming more resilient in life.
Wow, thank you for that. Building a positive image. That's the second tool under positive psychology I'm getting today. So the first one is journaling. The second one is building a positive image. Thank you so much, Martin, for that. Let me also extend this to the rest of the panel. We have Deborah and we have Magdalene. What are some of the ways that positive psychology can help to build resilience, can help with coping skills? And what are some of these strategies that come to mind when we are talking about this? Let me hand it over to Deborah first and then Magdalene.
So, positive psychology is important in building resilience because we need that, especially in life. There's a lot. So, if you don't have resilience, it's very easy to, go from a state of, wellness to the opposite very quickly. So, some strategies that can help in this would include practicing self compassion, not being overly critical to yourself, and understanding that people make mistakes, just not being too hard on yourself, and recognizing that things will pass. I think it helps in building resilience to deal with things because you view situations as they are. You do not beat yourself down too much when you're in these difficult situations, and you understand that sometimes you can be in control of everything. And I think this practicing self-compassion and kindness to oneself can help build that mind resilience to help you go through adversities in life and all that. Thank you.
Building self-compassion. I think from my experience, and not just in practice, but even interacting with peers, friends, family, I'm coming to realize that we are our biggest critics. We are very harsh on ourselves. You make a mistake, and the way you grill yourself, you would not even dare to do that to someone you care about. So it's important that we learn how to be compassionate to ourselves. Once in a while, remember to be kinder. Accord yourself some grace. Thank you so much, Deborah, for that. Let me hand it over to you, Magdalene. In terms of positive psychology, yeah. Over to you.
Thank you. I'd mostly start even by defining resilience. There are some different definitions of resilience, but one of them is that going through a particular challenge without losing your mental health or without you developing a mental illness. That is one of the definitions of resilience, as well as being able to go through the different challenges in life by having different resources within you. So I'd look at it, say, in terms of and how positive psychology could be able to help through by, number one, looking at the strengths that you have within yourself and trying to tap into those strengths. So like looking at an example of like camels, for example, which are in the desert most of the time, they tend to develop a coping mechanism of having, the hump that has, they store a lot of water within them.
Wow, we seem to have lost Magdalene there. No problem though, as soon as she joins back, we'll give her a chance to pick it up from where she was going. But I could already see what she was taking us through, channeling into some of the strengths we already have, to help us to navigate a situation. So we'll give her a chance to finish up on that when she comes back. So we're looking at the context of mental health care. Why are we particularly focusing on this for now. Yes, healthcare is a conversation that has been had for a long time, but mental health care particularly might not have been given enough airtime. And this is something that we are now embracing. We are now giving enough attention to. And let's look at the impact that positive psychology principles, how positive psychology principles and strategies can be used to support patients who are facing mental health challenges. What are some of the ways that you can use positive psychology in supporting anyone who could be listening to this, who is going through a mental health lived experience? Let me start with you, Martin, and then over to Deborah.
Okay, fine. Yes, positive psychology is helpful and also and useful to people dealing with mental health issues, whether diagnosed or also not diagnosed, by a professional. And what positive psychology does now, we take an example of, a person with a depressive disorder. These people will often have a negative view of life. They feel like everyone is against them, and they'll lead a life where they don't have hope in life as such. And by incorporating positive psychology as part of the care they receive, we can be able to change their perspectives of life. And this is by helping them look more keenly into their strengths. They can brainstorm on what is good in life. And this can be, things like having a family, having a job, being healthy, and physically healthy. I mean, and that way they'll maybe start to appreciate life in in a small way. And also for people who may be having anxiety disorders, which is characterized by constant worrying or fears about what is going to happen next, we can have positive psychology coming in and helping such a person to be self-aware of themselves, and they will be able to know when their thoughts are becoming too much or they are shifting to issues other than what they are actually focusing on at that moment, and they are able to live in the present rather than worrying so much of things that may not actually happen at all. And through positive psychology, we can help anyone with a mental health issue to actually adopt positive habits in life. Yes, and that's could be things like positive reflections, meditations, and this way they may gradually be able to improve and lower the burden of the mental health issue they could be facing. Yeah, that's it.
Wow. Thank you so much for that. And we're for those who are listening, if there's anyone who started with us from the start, we are continuously adding up to the different tools under positive psychology. We spoke of positive image in building that. There's also self-compassion. There's, which one is the one that Magdalene brought up? One seems to have eluded me, but now I'm hearing another one, and that is on gratitude. I constantly hear this statement that I, I can't wait to be happy. I can't, I'm looking forward to that time in my life when I'll be happy. And I constantly find myself wondering, do we look forward to that ideal to the point that we forget to appreciate the little joys that you have here and there as you're going through life. And that's exactly what I was hearing on, Martin was speaking, that we forget to appreciate these small things that are happening in our life right now. Um, and gratitude reminds us of that. Yes, today has been a tough day, but perhaps you had a 30 minutes call with someone who you really like, someone who makes you feel happy, feel grounded, and we forget to appreciate that. So I'm hearing another tool, and that is gratitude. And thank you so much, Martin, for that. Before I come back to you, Deborah, allow me to go a little bit back and give Magdalena a chance to finish up on what she was talking on. Magdalene, do you feel set to go back to what you're taking us through?
Oh yeah, I'm so sorry. I had connectivity issues. I'm sorry about that. I was basically talking about how defining what resilience is, and even just looking through like different animals, like the camels that end up developing mechanisms to live in the desert, or if it could be like a cactus that learns to, instead of having leaves to, minimize them to thorns so that they don't end up losing a lot of water, and so many different examples of how animals tend to develop resilience as a coping mechanism. So even for us, we could learn to look at our own strengths as a point of positive psychology. What strengths could we be able to tap within ourselves? What strengths can we be able to develop to deal with the different situations that are there? Maybe one of them could be learning on problem solving mechanisms. Yeah, so just looking at a problem from a very objective point of view. Okay, so this is the problem. How much knowledge do I have about this problem, and getting to learn as much as I can from that note, and then being able to find a different way of solving that particular problem. So that is on, developing your personal strengths through problem solving, or even going to see, it could be a therapist, for example, who could help you through navigate whichever things that, or whichever challenges that you're going through, that could help you to come to a state of also well-being. So I'd say part of positive psychology could be tapping into your own personal strengths or learning to build on those strengths. Also remembering that, in life, there'll never be a point where there's never going to be a struggle, or there's never going to be a challenge. Stress is always going to be there in life, not unless, when you're dead, that is when all the stress will go for you. Yeah. But for the rest of us who are alive, stress is always going to be there. So it's all about us learning, how do I effectively deal with these stresses? How do I cope with these stresses so that they do not, you know, um, flood me, or they do not drown me? So I'd say mostly tapping through our own personal strengths, looking at the positivity, like we're changing our thought patterns. If our thought patterns normally make us feel um, bad or give us a negative outlook of life, I think it's high time for us to start changing some of those thought processes into, and now developing more positive thought processes to help us through into now well-being. Yeah.
Mhm. Wow, channeling into our strengths, and letting those help us navigate the struggles that are inevitable in this journey of life. So thank you so much, Magdalene, for that. And while you were away, we had gone into the next aspect, and that is how to practice positive psychology in supporting people living with mental health challenges. And we had started with Martin. Now I'll go over to Deborah, and then we can come back to you, Magdalene. Over to you, Deborah.
So positive psychology can be used for, supporting people who are facing mental health challenges. For instance, they perhaps would be encouraged to cultivate meaningful relationships or maintain good relations with family, friends. Having a support system during that time is really important, because, these people feel alone most of the time, and having people around them who cheer them on and, help them carry on and not give up is really important. So that's one thing they can do. And something else I'd like to add is just going back to the main point of positive psychology, which is identifying your strengths. So I think in this case, for instance, someone who has depression, yeah, she could do exercises to identify her strengths and this will help her take a more active role in her illness. So she knows that she can do something about it. Maybe she's good at this, or she has these kind of positive emotions, or always something that you can do to help make the situation better. So yeah, that's what I had to say.
Oh, thank you so much for that. And you mentioned the aspect of support systems, which also goes a long way. So, of all that's been mentioned today, I'll do a quick recap. There was journaling, there was building a positive image, self compassion, gratitude, channeling into our strengths. And our strength could also be our support systems. Do we have people around us who are very willing, who are ready to support us through the challenges we are going through? And are we giving them the chance to be there for us in that way? Thank you so much, Deborah, for that. Let me hand it over to you, Magdalene, in terms of even in your practice, some of the things that you've seen as part of positive psychology that has helped a client who's going through mental health challenges. Over to you,
Mm,
Magdalene.
Thank you, Panda. So, as a therapist, I normally use that a type of therapy we call CBT, where we actively try to change thought patterns through getting to realize what are the common and helpful thinking styles that a person has, and then trying to change them or for them to have an alternative view of different situations, which now eventually helps a person to start feeling much better. Also, another technique would be encouraging the person to do the things that normally make them feel happy. Yeah. So if it's they like playing chess, we encourage more of that behavior, or listening to music, or just getting the person to start doing the things that they normally enjoy doing, which can actively help a person to release those endorphins that ultimately make them feel much better, or much good about themselves. And then other activities like a self-esteem activities, through art therapy, where we could look at a person more as a tree. So what are some of the roots that this person has had? Where have they come from? What are their backgrounds? Like now the tree itself, the trunk, what are some of the abilities that they tend to have, or they tend to possess? Looking over to like the flowers, what are some of the things that this person has been able to contribute to society, to people, from the most least particular thing to even a very big thing, or even the different achievements that they've been able to get. So these are just the different um techniques that we tend to use now on the positive psychology to constantly affirm themselves on a daily basis, that I'm doing well, I'm doing good, or I'm struggling with this thing, but there's still hope. So just these different techniques ultimately help a patient or clients to get to the point where they are now mentally okay. So I'd say the CBT, the type of therapy where we change thoughts, looking at the different strengths of a person, the different strengths that they have, and also encouraging them to do the things that they normally love doing, and also different techniques like mindfulness, teaching them to just be in the here and now, to be in the present moment. So what are some of the things that I can be able to see right now that I appreciate? 4 sounds I can hear, 3 things I can touch, 2 things I can smell, 1 thing I can taste, that really help a person to stop being so much into their heads, and to just learn to be present, or to appreciate the gift of their presence. Yeah.
Mhm. Well, thank you so much for that, Magdalene. And from what I'm hearing, from what all of you have said as the panel, is that some of these tools are actually already here with us, and some of them we already practice without giving enough, without even knowing that we are practicing some of these tools. For example, like affirmations. I'm sure a lot of us have once in a while given ourselves some affirmations without knowing the extent of the impact of that. And the other way to look at it is that we have some of these tools that are readily available with us. And it's for us to channel into them, for us to practice some of these things. But we start from a point of awareness, knowing what I can do, knowing what is there and available, readily available for us to practice. And that brings me to the aspect of self care. And this is, these things that you do with or without the presence of professional to help you promote well-being. And self-care and well-being go hand in hand. And perhaps we can go into that aspect of looking at how can we integrate positive psychology in self-care. We cannot deny the impact that self-care has on well-being. So how then can we integrate positive psychology in self-care? Let me start with, I'll just follow the same order. I'll start with Martin and then go over to Deborah. Over to you, Martin.
Okay, thank you. As you have accurately said, is that we all practice positive psychology, only that no one actually tells us that that's positive psychology we are practicing. And by doing the self-care activities, which are the intentional activities that we do to achieve a better life balance. You may be tired from work, you may be having a stressful event, you may be having relationship issues. Now self-care comes in and looks at what do we do to be able to decompress and actually restore a bit of sobriety. And these are some of the activities like, one may decide to watch a movie, one may decide to read a book, may go for a drive, may take a break from work. And one aspect that I feel that underlies self-care is self-awareness and self-knowledge. In that, you are able to understand yourself well, you're able to understand your strengths, your boundaries, and you know at what point you need to incorporate some of these self-care activities. You know that if you get stressed this much, you may feel actually more down. So you may decide to undertake some of these activities to be able to to get your life back. So it's important that we keep or we understand some of these personal activities that really help us to be able to remain emotionally or mentally stable. Yes. Pedro, your mic is off.
Apologies for that. Thank you so much for that. And I was saying about, I appreciate how you brought about the aspect of how well self-care can help us to pick out what our boundaries are, our strengths are, and eventually they build up on who we are as an individual. And thank you so much, Martin, for highlighting that. Let me hand it over to you, Deborah. How can we integrate positive psychology in our self-care practices?
Okay, so with self-care, it has to be deliberate because you're doing this, you want to achieve certain results. And there are so many different activities that can be done for self-care. And so one needs to really find out what works for them. If it's working out, and once you exercise, you feel so much better, or perhaps it's meditation, whatever it could be, and it has to be consistent. So gradually, you'll notice positive changes in your well-being. So I think with positive psychology, it's just really to understand what works best for you and keep doing it with time. Yeah, you will notice the change.
Wow. Thank you. Consistency then goes a long way when it comes to, and intentionality. We have to be intentional when it comes to self-care. Thank you so much for that, Deborah. Over to you, Magdalene. Integration of positive psychology and self-care. What are your thoughts on that? Sorry, Magdalene, you're muted.
Oh, sorry. I'd say that self-care mostly helps us a lot to not get burnt out or to just be able to learn to effectively look after ourselves. And I'd say positive psychology is something that can also be incorporated on a daily basis, just as what Martin had said, like just doing the things that you normally like doing. I would add, like, on the positive psychology bit, say for example, if it's gratitude, maybe you can try to tie it with a hobby that you normally do. So, or something that you normally tend to do. So if it's at the end of the day and you tend to maybe decide to just freshen up or to take a shower, in that time when you're showering, you could try to reflect through over the positive things that have happened during the day. Or immediately after dinner, maybe when, if you're a spiritual person and you like praying, immediately maybe you, before you pray, you can decide to go through the different things that have happened during the day as an act of meditation, or even as an act of gratitude. So just being able to tie down the different aspects of positive psychology to our normal daily routines, and just being very consistent, as Deborah had said. But even just being able to start small, because it can be a bit difficult to just try and do all of these things all at once. So just trying to figure out what will really work for me, and just starting out on very small steps on an everyday basis, knowing that later on is when you're going to start seeing the results. You might not see the results immediately, but with time you're going to see the fruits of it. So also being very consistent, yeah, it could really help. So just tying down the different aspects of positive psychology to our daily normal routines, or to our daily hobbies, or even just deciding to subscribe to a channel. Say if you're going by road or by mat to work, so you could decide, I'm going to be listening maybe for 1 hour in the mat on some positive reaffirmation channels that could help me feel, good, or that could help me to foster personal strength or resilience. So just trying to incorporate it into our daily lives. And also on the other aspect would be on social support. So just regularly creating time to be with people, to be with friends, and to just share and engage more with them. Yeah.
Mhm. Well, thank you so much, Magdalene, for that. And something that you've said that I think actually serves really well as a call to action for anyone who's listening to this conversation, be it through the platforms said before, or anyone who listened to it after it's done, because we'll have this same recording playing in our podcast, that's Podmind, which you can get through Spotify or Apple Music. So if you'd like to listen to this after, please go and catch it through those platforms. Um, the call to action would be to find ways to integrate positive psychology, the different forms that have been discussed through this session, in our day-to-day self-care practices. I like the example of gratitude. Even when you're doing a self-care activity, for example, taking a shower, or your self-care activity at the end of the day is cooking something nice for yourself, and that could come as a way of rewarding yourself from how the day has been. And there are very many ways that you can integrate this. So I think that's a challenge to myself, to the entire panel, and I think to anyone who's listening to this conversation, to find ways to integrate positive psychology to our self-care activities. And there's something, as you're coming to the end of the conversation, there's something that's constantly come up, and I think it's important that we give it some time, and that is the aspect of social connections, the people around us, social support. And we can look at or rather go into a brief discussion on how we can foster positive relationships around us. What are some of the practical ways? I cannot emphasize enough on the word practical. What are some of the practical ways that we can foster positive relationships, social connections? They say no man is an island, and I think those are quite wise words to have been released out here. So, what are some of the practical ways we can foster positive connections? Let me start with you, Martin, and then we'll go to Deborah, and then finally finish with Magdalene.
Okay, as you have said, social connection is important for human relationships and maintaining them. And it's a concept that actually focuses on having that sense of belonging, and you feel close to other people, the people you love, family, And as we know that social connection is integral to human life from birth. Yeah, a child wants to feel connected to their mother. As you grow, you want to feel that connection to your friends throughout life. And one aspect or one principle of social connection that I would emphasize is empathy. And empathy, as you know, is being able to fit in other people's shoes. To actually imagine how they are taking a particular experience or how they are feeling. And with empathy, there's that principle of complementarity, because you want to show empathy to other people, and you also expect them to also show empathy to you when you have a problem. And that complementarity is the one that maintains friendships. Because you want to be good to people who also do good to you. And when we break that cycle, then we also break the social connection. And with social connection is it integrates the principles of positive psychology. And we know that when you are connected to friends, to family, it's actually easier to share your problems, to share your experiences. And we know that a problem shared is a problem half solved. And so we can try to always be able to nurture and build authenticity in our friendships. That's key for feeling being connected, being part of a larger society or family. And that's it.
Wow. Thank you so much, Martin, on that. We feel social connections as early as birth. Thank you so much for highlighting that. And it's important. We need to have this to feel as part of a society. Let me hand it over to you, Deborah. Um, the aspect of social connections. How important, actually, first of all, are they to our mental well-being, and then what are some of the practical ways we can foster positive connections and relationships? Over to you.
Okay, so social connections are very important to our well-being because we need support. Everyone needs support, even those who say they don't actually do. Um, so yeah, in different stages of life, we've seen when you're going through, perhaps mental issues, you need a support system. Even when you're going through good times, you need people to celebrate with you. So I think it's a big part of everyone's life to have people who are there for you. And to achieve this, you also need to get out there, perhaps, join social clubs, join groups. And it doesn't have to be only about, some clubs that we've never heard of or unheard of. It could be a religious group if you're religious, because it's easier to bond with people with whom you share similar values. Or it could be just any club that, people there participate in activities that you also enjoy. So there's that similarity. And after having these connections, it's also important to keep them. So, perhaps schedule regular meetups and phone calls, virtual meetings, whatever, just to keep it on, because a connection has to be there. You can't just meet people and then, if you keep quiet and you don't talk to each other, you don't engage regularly, this connection over time will weaken. So, yeah, I think it's important to find similarities with your connections and also put in some effort and be a good friend also.
Oh, thank you for that. So, one, and that is, I think, a good challenge to put effort to be a good friend. I think that goes a long way, because some of us like to joyride on the effort of other people. So putting that intentional effort to be a good friend, one. And then two, a way to help us to form some of these connections is by joining groups that have people that share the same interests as us. or values in terms of if it's a religious group, or any other forms. Thank you so much for that. Let me hand it over then to Magdalene as we're coming to a close. Over to you, Magdalene.
Yeah, I don't think I'll say anything more that Martin and Deborah haven't said. But I'd like to share that the only way to have a friend is to be a friend. Yeah? The only way to have a friend is to be a friend. So we also have to be the people who are actively listening to other people, actively empathizing with them, actively sharing, or just being able to make schedules so that you could be able to meet up regularly. And even when you're meeting up, practicing the things that you've already said, like doing the things that normally make you guys feel happy, or as a hobby, what activities could we be able to do at this time that could help foster a good feeling. Other things could be constantly validating each other, and even telling our friends to watch what they say about themselves or what they speak about themselves. So immediately, maybe you find your friend is saying a negative statement, you tell them, no, stop, that's a very negative, statement that you're speaking about yourself. Try to change it, or constantly bringing it into their awareness that they're thinking in a negative manner, and then helping them to now start speaking to themselves on a positive manner, or looking at life in a much more positive space. So I'd mostly tell people to just try and listen to what a person is saying, spending time with them, as well as trying to help them change their thinking. So when you are able to become a good friend to other people, then they will also reciprocate it, and they're gonna be friends with you whenever you're going through a hard time. They're gonna be there for you, as well as the good times, such as the ones that Deborah has already told us about. They're also going to be there for you to celebrate with you. And it's such a joy when you're going through a good season in your life and you have people to support you. You call people, let's have a party, or let's just have a gathering, and they all come and they celebrate. It's such a very, it's a good feeling, because at the end of the day, no man is an island. So learn to just empathize, understand, create a safe space between you and your friends, and just constant communication, and just making sure that these persons are looking at life from positive type of thing, or even deciding we're going to do like an activity like a gratitude exercise. So just sharing, what are you grateful for this week, or what happened this year, what are you looking forward to. So the more you're sharing, the more you're engaging, the more it also fosters the relationship to become much more strong, and it also helps you to feel much better.
Hmm. Thank you so much, Magdalene, for that summary. And as we're coming up to now the end of the conversation, I'd like to invite a parting shot from the panel. What would you like to say to someone who is thinking of incorporating positive psychology in their day-to-day lives? So let me start with Deborah, and then we'll go to you, Magdalene, and then we'll finish with Martin. Let me start with you, Deborah. What would you like to say to someone who would like to incorporate positive psychology in their day-to-day life? Over to you, Deborah.
If you're looking to incorporate positive psychology to your day-to-day life, it's not too late to start. Just start small. You don't have to dive all in and bring all these aspects of positive psychology and practice them all at once. So you can figure out what works step by step, and bring more things according to the need that is there. And over time you'll get it right. Yeah, it's simple. It's as simple as just being grateful you're alive, or just being grateful to see the nature outside or whatever. So it doesn't have to be very complicated. And don't give up. With time, you'll get a hang of it, and you'll definitely notice your life getting better due to it.
Wow, thank you so much. Let me hand it over to Magdalene. What would you like to say to someone who would like to incorporate positive psychology in their daily life?
Yeah, I just tell them to be very patient and compassionate with themselves as they try to develop it. It's more of, especially if you're learning about it today, it's more of a muscle that needs to be constantly exercised. So it's, like baby steps. At one point, you're going to start and then you're going to fall, or you're not going to know which step to take. But with time, the more you practice it, the better you're going to become at it. So just be very patient with yourself and compassionate, and just know later on you're going to be able to really master the skill, and it's going to be more fruitful for you later on. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Magdalene, for that. And then finally, over to you, Martin. What would you like to say to someone who is looking to incorporate positive psychology in their daily life? Over to you.
Yes, my colleagues have said, in this case, I would advise them to focus on self, to practice self-love, being compassionate on themselves, avoiding being overly critical for themselves, avoiding self-pity, and try to build themselves gradually, and be patient with themselves. Yeah, those are some of the maybe tips I would give someone who wants to incorporate positive psychology in their life.
Mhm. Well, thank you so much, Martin. Enough has been said by the panel. Great insights on the aspect of positive psychology and well being and how we can incorporate this in our daily lives. Thank you so much to the panel. And a special thank you to anyone who is watching this conversation live, be it on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter. Remember that this recording will be available through our podcast, that is Podmind, and you're welcome to listen in. I'd also like to highlight some few things, and one is our toll-free line. We have a toll-free line that is 0800 220 000. This is a crisis line that is available for anyone who is going through a tough time and would like to speak to someone. On the other end of this line is a psychologist who will be able to guide you through the crisis that you're going through. And this is as part of our Tufunguke initiative. This is Swahili for Let Us Open Up. And this is there to create a safe space for each and all of us to be able to open up, talk to someone, be it your workmate, a friend, family. If you're going through something, you don't have to go through it alone. You're not alone. So let us open up and let's talk about mental health. The more we talk about this, the more we reduce the stigma that has been there for years around mental health. If you would like to reach us, please feel free to search us at Chiromo Host GRP on Twitter, Instagram, Chiromo Hospital Group on Facebook. We are available through all of these platforms, and you're able to reach us through there and ask any questions that you'd like to ask, engage us. Let me read a comment that just came in through our Facebook page, and it says support systems and intentional relationships / friendship is key. Self-awareness, focusing on strengths for personal growth mentally helps a lot. I agree with that. Thank you for this discussion. Let me extend that thank you to the panel for the great insights that you've shared through the discussion. So we are just coming to the end of this conversation, and I would like to leave you with one statement, and that is your mental health first. Remember that you cannot pour from an empty cup. Please give enough time, give a lot of attention to your mental health. Your mental health comes first. So thank you so much to everyone who's been watching, and thank you to the panel. Looking forward to meet some of you on Monday as we have a tweet chat on our Twitter page next week, and we'll engage some more. So thank you so much and have a good evening ahead.